Okay, we're at the end of the semester here. Um, I'm not going to read off a script or anything. I'm just going to try to give you a few concluding thoughts, like I would if we were in person. So, first of all, I just want to thank everybody for their really, really hard work. I almost didn't realize when I was putting this syllabus together just how much work I was really asking of you all. And you really have risen to the occasion week after week, turning in a lot of extensive, thoughtful writing to the point that I've had to ask people to rein it in, if anything. And so that has just been really inspiring. And I want you to all know that seeing work like that really gives me a good feeling about what I do. So thank you. I want to just give a couple of thoughts on what I would hope that you take away from this class. Now, one thing to say is that a lot of people, understandably, are going to college in order to get basically a certificate that will enable them to get a higher paying job than they could otherwise get. And that's a valid reason to go to college for sure. And it's the only reason most of us can afford to go to college. But this class and classes like this are not in furtherance of that goal. The truth is, I don't think that this class is designed to give you skills that are going to be useful in a white-collar workplace. That's certainly not what my goal is. The fact is that there are other parts of yourself, there are other capacities that you have beyond just your capacity to work and make money for yourself or for someone else that need to be nurtured and respected. And one of these is your capacity to think and to reflect on the past and the present in a deep way. And that's what I want you to take away from this. What are the advantages of having that ability? Well, at the core of it is that you are able to respond to the things that happen in our society in a way that someone with less preparation is not able to. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's say one thing. Many people in America are inclined to make statements about what this country is, what it is and always has been. And these statements are usually to some degree a distortion, to some degree an effort to push a certain political perspective. But many people are susceptible to them because they don't actually know that much independently about the country's history. So they're not able to verify or criticize the statements that are handed to them by politicians, commentators, journalists, YouTubers, or whatever about what the supposed values of our country are. I'll also say that it gives you a certain background to assess current events, because current events are, in many cases, something of a reiteration of events that have already taken place. Just to give a pretty neutral example, well, not that neutral, but the tariffs, right? Tariffs are big in the news right now. There's a lot of people who are sort of rushing to their preferred sources of commentary to get usually some very partisan and limited explanation of what the tariffs are about. You all had some knowledge of tariffs beyond just what's happening right now. You understand something about the place of tariffs in American history, controversies that have unfolded over them in the past. And so that's just one example of a way that studying the past gives you some context to form a more independent opinion about current events than other people might be able to. I'll also say that there's an element, and this is maybe a little bit sort of esoteric, there's an element of history that resembles psychology or psychoanalysis. You think about when you're trying to understand a pattern in your life or in the life of, say, your client that is maybe destructive or harmful, and you want to understand where does that come from, and In psychoanalysis, we would often say that it comes from some kind of early experience in that person's life history that is still influencing them to act out in a certain way. Well, the sort of collective psychology of a nation is similar. There are patterns, reflexes, behaviors that repeat in a nation's culture. Even they can be repeated by people who aren't fully aware of where they come from. So if you understand yourself, you can maybe stop yourself from reenacting things that you would rather not reenact. And the same goes for understanding your nation's history. Now, another thing I'd like to say is that the history of our country is not all bad. People often talk about avoiding the mistakes of the past. But there are also ways, I will say, that the past can be better than what we have today. In many ways, I believe that early America had features that were preferable to our current society. Now, of course, there are these very obvious shortcomings, like the existence of slavery. But consider this: when people were coming out of slavery, their ambitions for what they wanted, for the lives they wanted to make for themselves, were very much set by the kinds of ambitions that were prevalent in early America and the kinds of possibilities that had existed for free white Americans in an earlier America. Black Americans coming out of slavery wanted to realize those promises. What were those promises? Well, for one thing, the ownership of land, independent ownership of land, working for yourself, not working for somebody else. Okay, that was in ambition that was central to early American history that has since been lost. The aspirations of white Americans, black Americans, all Americans have substantially declined since early America. We have become accustomed to expect much, much less, to expect lives of perpetual servitude of a kind to employers. That has been normalized. It was not always normal in this country's history. Nor was it normal for us to be as passive and tolerant of government that is very unresponsive to the popular will. There are many issues on which most Americans agree, and that nevertheless, government does not reflect that agreement. Government acts according to the preferences of big donors and funders, not according to the preferences of the people. I believe that people in today's society in America are far, far more tolerant of that, far less willing to resist than earlier generations of Americans were. So it's very useful to remember that as well. These are some of the things that I hope you'll take away with you. And I very much look forward to seeing what you're going to do on your final papers. Very excited to see that. And again, give yourselves a pat on the back for the great work that you've done this semester. Know that I see it and truly appreciate it. And the summer's almost here.